The late afternoon sun, usually a comforting presence, felt different today. A hush had fallen over the small town of Oakhaven, not the quiet of slumber, but the breathless anticipation of something monumental. Ilara, her usually calm features etched with a subtle tension, stood on the porch of her grandmother's old farmhouse, a worn leather-bound journal clutched in her hand. The air was thick with an almost palpable energy, a hum that vibrated deep in her bones. She glanced at the sky, a vast expanse of fading blue, already hinting at the celestial drama to come. The date was September 12th, 2025, and the world was bracing for a total solar eclipse, an event that had been whispered about in ancient texts and modern prophecies alike as a harbinger of change. Ilara had always felt a connection to something larger than herself, a quiet knowing that set her apart. She wasn't alone in this. There were others, scattered across the globe, who felt the same pull, the same subtle difference in their perception of reality. They were the chosen ones, a term her grandmother, a woman of deep wisdom and esoteric knowledge, had often used. But unlike the grand, dramatic pronouncements of fiction, their calling was subtle, a quiet intuition, a heightened sensitivity to the energies of the universe. They were not destined for battles or heroic quests in the traditional sense, but for a different kind of awakening, a collective shift in consciousness. Her grandmother, Lyra, had been preparing Ilara for this moment since she was a small child. Lyra had spoken of the September 2025 eclipse as a pivotal alignment, a cosmic trigger that would activate something within the chosen ones, connecting them in a way never before experienced. The greatest illusion, Lyra had once told her, is that we are alone. The eclipse will shatter that illusion, Ilara. It will reveal the vast, intricate web of connection that binds us all, especially those who carry the light. Ilara traced the faded symbols on the journal's cover. It was Lyra's, filled with cryptic notes, star charts, and prophecies that seemed to weave together the scientific and the spiritual. She'd spent countless hours poring over its pages, trying to decipher the true meaning behind her grandmother's sometimes abstract words. One entry, in particular, stood out, circled and underlined. During the solar eclipse of September 2025, the veil will thin, the frequency will shift. All chosen ones, not being alone, will change everything. She looked out at the rolling fields, bathed in the diminishing light. The silence was becoming profound, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. People in Oakhaven were gathering in their backyards, setting up special viewing glasses, their excitement tinged with a solemn reverence. This wasn't just another astronomical event for them. It was a moment of wonder, a brief glimpse into the majestic dance of the cosmos. For Ilara, and others like her, it was far more. As the moon began its slow, inexorable march across the sun, a chill wind swept through the valley. The light took on an otherworldly quality, a surreal twilight that wasn't quite day, not quite night. The colors of the world seemed to deepen, to become richer and more vibrant, yet at the same time, subtly muted. Birds, usually boisterous, fell silent, and even the air seemed to thicken, laden with an invisible weight. Ilara felt a strange sensation in her chest, a blossoming warmth that spread outwards, encompassing her whole being. It wasn't unpleasant, but intensely powerful, like a gentle current of electricity flowing through her veins. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, allowing the feeling to wash over her. Memories, fragmented and fleeting, began to surface. A sense of shared purpose, a feeling of camaraderie with unseen individuals, a deep, resonant echo of understanding that transcended words. When she opened her eyes again, the transformation of the sky was well underway. The sun was now a crescent of fiery gold, its light fading rapidly. The landscape was bathed in an eerie silver glow. Then, with breathtaking speed, the last sliver of the sun vanished, swallowed by the moon's dark disk. The world held its breath. The sky, where moments before had been daylight, was now a deep, inky black, and scattered across its expanse were stars, brighter and more numerous than she had ever seen. The sun, reduced to a magnificent corona, blazed like a fiery halo, its ethereal tendrils stretching outwards into the cosmic darkness. It was a sight of unimaginable beauty, raw and ancient, a testament to the power and majesty of the universe. But it wasn't just the visual spectacle that captivated Alara. The internal sensation intensified, becoming a powerful surge of energy that coursed through her, a feeling of profound connection. It was as if 1,000 tiny threads, previously invisible, had suddenly snapped into place, linking her to others, to the earth, to the very fabric of existence. She wasn't alone. She had never been alone. The illusion was indeed shattering. In that moment of total eclipse, Alara didn't just feel her own energy, she felt theirs. A symphony of consciousness, a chorus of awakened souls resonating across continents, across oceans. She felt the quiet strength of a young artist in Tokyo, whose brushstrokes would soon capture the newfound light. She felt the steady resolve of a scientist in Berlin, whose research would unlock new understanding. She felt the compassionate heart of a healer in the Amazon, whose hands would bring comfort. She felt the ancient wisdom of an elder in the Himalayas, whose meditations would guide their collective path. It wasn't a cacophony, but a harmonious blend, each unique frequency contributing to a grand, collective resonance. It was understanding without words, empathy without effort, a shared purpose that transcended individual desires. The not being alone wasn't about proximity. It was about an undeniable, intrinsic unity. A single tear traced a path down Alara's cheek, not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude and profound recognition. All the years of quiet introspection, all the subtle nudges and intuitive insights, all the times she had felt like an outsider looking in, they suddenly made sense. This was her tribe, her family, bound not by blood, but by spirit, by a shared destiny that was now, finally, revealing itself. The corona flared, a living, breathing entity in the dark sky. The stars pulsed with an unusual brilliance. Time seemed to stretch and warp, each second feeling like an eternity, yet fleeting all the same. During this sacred darkness, the world was silent, save for the beating of her own heart, now synchronized with countless others. Then, slowly, almost reluctantly, the moon began its retreat. A tiny sliver of sunlight pierced the darkness, a diamond ring sparkling in the cosmic expanse. The light returned, gradually at first, then with increasing intensity, banishing the stars and pushing back the profound shadows. The colors of Oakhaven returned, but they seemed brighter, more vivid, as if scrubbed clean by the eclipse's passage. The warmth in Alara's chest remained, though it had settled into a steady, comforting glow. The connection was still there, a foundational shift that had permanently altered her internal landscape. She knew, with absolute certainty, that she was fundamentally changed. The world around her might look the same, but her perception of it, her place within it, was irrevocably different. She opened Lyra's journal again, finding another entry. this one towards the end, written in a shaky hand. The age of separation is ending. The eclipse is the midwife of the age of connection. The chosen ones will lead the way, not through grand declarations, but through their awakened hearts, their unified intentions. Their not being alone will be the guiding star for humanity. Alara closed the journal, her gaze sweeping across the fields, past the distant tree line, toward the horizon where the sun was now fully restored, though its light felt softer, imbued with a new kind of wisdom. The people of Oakhaven were stirring, their collective gasp of wonder turning into excited chatter. They had witnessed a magnificent astronomical event. But Alara, and the countless others like her, had experienced something far deeper. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. The world was still fractured, still grappling with old paradigms and deep-seated divisions. But now, the chosen ones were not solitary beacons. They were a connected network, a powerful force of light and consciousness. Their individual strengths would now be amplified by their collective unity. Their intuitive nudges would become a chorus of guidance. Their quiet understanding would become a shared wisdom. Alara felt a surge of quiet determination. The task wasn't to conquer or control, but to inspire, to illuminate, to remind humanity of the profound connections that already existed, waiting to be rediscovered. It was about gentle guidance, about living as an example, about radiating the truth that all beings are interconnected. The true strength lies not in isolation, but in unity. She descended the porch steps, the worn wood creaking softly under her feet. The air still carried that subtle hum, but now it felt like a melody, a silent song of connection. She looked at her hands, feeling the lingering warmth, the subtle vibration. This wasn't a burden. It was a gift, a profound responsibility she embraced with an open heart. The solar eclipse of September 2025 had indeed changed everything. It wasn't a cataclysm, but a catalyst. It wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. For the chosen ones, the illusion of being alone had been dispelled, replaced by the profound, undeniable truth of their interconnectedness. And with that truth, a new path, a new purpose, had unfolded before them all. The journey of not being alone had truly begun, promising a future shaped by collective consciousness, guided by unified intention, and illuminated by the boundless light of shared purpose. The world was ready, perhaps unknowingly, for the subtle yet revolutionary shift that their collective awakening would bring. And Alara, standing on her grandmother's porch, felt ready too. Not as an individual, but as a vital part of something infinitely larger and more powerful. In the days that followed, the nature of this connection began to clarify. It was not a telepathic chatter of voices, but a shared, intuitive field, a silent, resonant understanding that flowed between them like an invisible current. Alara found herself comprehending complex astrological charts in Lyra's journal that had once been indecipherable, the knowledge seeming to bloom in her mind effortlessly. In the town, she offered a simple, insightful solution to a long-standing dispute between two farming families, the words flowing from her with a wisdom that felt both ancient and new. A synthesis of empathy she could now feel from 1,000 different perspectives. This was the first ripple of their unified consciousness. The ability to access a pool of collective knowledge and compassion, to see problems not as isolated events, but as part of an interconnected whole, and to find solutions rooted not in compromise, but in true, harmonious understanding. Across the planet, this silent symphony of purpose began to manifest in tangible ways. The artist in Tokyo, feeling a surge of shared inspiration, began a series of paintings that depicted the vibrant, unseen energy fields connecting all living things. Her work would soon captivate the world, speaking a universal language of unity that transcended cultural barriers. The scientist in Berlin, guided by a sudden, inexplicable insight that felt like a gift from 1,000 minds, connected disparate fields of research to pioneer a clean, sustainable energy source that had been just beyond humanity's grasp. The healer in the Amazon, her intuitive senses amplified, started combining traditional plant knowledge with this new, profound understanding of bioenergetic fields to achieve healings that defied modern medical explanation. They were all acting independently, yet in perfect, unspoken harmony, each contributing their unique skills to a grand, collaborative effort to mend and elevate the world. This was the true meaning of changing everything. It was not a sudden, dramatic overthrow of the old world, but a gentle, persistent infusion of a new way of being. The chosen ones were now conduits, living nodes in a planetary network of consciousness, their purpose to anchor and radiate this frequency of unity. They would introduce solutions, art, and ideas into the collective human mind, not through force or persuasion, but by simply living their truth and allowing the resonance of their connection to ripple outwards. Their combined light would act as a leavening agent in society, slowly but surely dissolving the foundations of fear, separation, and conflict. The eclipse was not the final act. It was the grand awakening, the moment the weavers finally recognized each other across the vast loom of existence. Now, with threads of pure, interconnected light in their hands, the real work, the great weaving of a new earth, had just begun. Yet, this emerging light did not go unnoticed by the rest of the world. Though its source remained a profound mystery, observers spoke of a silent renaissance, an inexplicable and synchronous blossoming of human ingenuity and compassion. Long-standing political conflicts found sudden, unexpected paths to resolution, mediated by leaders who seemed to tap into a deeper well of empathy. Corporations, once driven solely by profit, began to pivot towards sustainable, ethical models, with a conviction that baffled market analysts. A wave of art, music, and literature swept the globe, carrying themes of unity and connection that resonated deeply with millions, stirring a dormant hope in the collective human heart. No one could pinpoint the cause of this global shift in the zeitgeist, but its effects were undeniable. It was a gentle, pervasive current of positive change, subtly altering the course of civilization without a single shot fired or a single decree issued. This process, however, was not without its own profound challenges for the connected. To be a part of this global network meant being sensitive not only to its harmony, but also to the world's lingering dissonance. In their quiet moments, the chosen ones felt the echoes of humanity's collective pain, the fear, the loneliness, the destruction, as a low, persistent hum beneath the symphony of their connection. It was a heavy burden, one that required a new form of strength. Guided by the shared wisdom flowing through their intuitive field, they learned to become not just conduits, but transformers. They learned to consciously take in this dense, heavy energy, not to be consumed by it, but to alchemize it within their unified field, transforming fear into courage and sorrow into compassion, and radiating that refined energy back into the world. It was a silent, sacred act of spiritual service, performed ceaselessly by a global team who had never met, but knew each other intimately. Having mastered this internal alchemy, their focus now began to shift towards a more direct and intentional purpose. The initial wave of their influence had been to stabilize and inspire humanity. The next phase was to heal the planet itself. From Alara on her farm to the scientist in her lab, they began to turn their collective, harmonized attention towards the Earth's greatest wounds. The polluted oceans, the vanishing forests, the scarred landscapes. It wasn't an act of magic, but of focused intention and energetic resonance. They aimed to amplify the Earth's own life force, to quicken its natural processes of recovery, and to inspire, on a mass scale, the physical actions required to restore balance. The Eclipse had opened their eyes to each other. Now, with eyes wide open, they looked upon the world not as their inheritance, but as their shared responsibility, their sacred garden to tend. The great weaving was no longer just about humanity. It was about the conscious co-creation of a new, vibrant reality for all life on Earth. Of course, here are 3 more paragraphs to continue the script. However, this pervasive current of light and unity inevitably began to illuminate the world's deepest shadows. Systems built upon foundations of control, scarcity, and separation started to falter, and those who held power within these old paradigms reacted with fear. A subtle but organized resistance began to form, not a physical army, but a campaign of discord. They amplified messages of fear, sowed seeds of division, and promoted cynicism to counteract the growing tide of global optimism. This was the old world's immune response, a last, desperate attempt to reject the healing frequency. For the chosen ones, this was a critical test. They felt this wave of manufactured negativity not as an attack, but as the final, frantic thrashing of a dying consciousness, a necessary fever before the world's health could be fully restored. In response, the network did not engage in conflict. Instead, they retreated deeper into their shared connection, discovering a new layer of their collective ability. They learned to create a shared, non-physical space, a sanctum of pure consciousness, a workshop for the soul. Within this silent realm, they began to actively co-create. The scientist, the artist, the healer, and thousands of others now work together in real time, their minds seamlessly integrated. Here, they designed blueprints for new systems of governance based on compassion, composed resonant frequencies to heal traumatized ecosystems, and architected educational models that nurtured intuition and unity. This was the next evolution of their purpose, moving from gentle influence to becoming the conscious, deliberate architects of the new reality, building it first in the loom of consciousness before it was woven into the fabric of the physical world. This intense, focused act of creation had an unforeseen and beautiful consequence. The powerful, coherent frequency they generated in their inner sanctum began to resonate outwards with such clarity that it acted as an awakening key for others. All over the world, people who were not part of the initial eclipse activation began to stir. A teacher in a small village would suddenly see a new way to connect with her students. A banker would feel an undeniable urge to redirect funds toward community projects. A soldier would lay down his arms, overcome with a sense of shared humanity. This was the second wave. The chosen ones had become a powerful broadcast for awakening, their unified heart creating a ripple that was now awakening the hearts of millions more. Their journey was no longer just about their connection, but about making that connection an invitation, opening the door for all of humanity to remember the profound, unshakable truth that no one is, or ever has been, truly alone.